sunglasses on. So bright and hot today. Yeah. Oh, another work week done. I'm on my way home. Yep. Driving a different truck today so that I don't need to hold the phone in my hand. Got one of these nifty little phone holders here. What's happening, viewer? Just question and answer day. Any questions today? Any answers? No? Okay. I'm guessing that most of the people that are going to come on here and jump back off are probably going to be people that are India or in the western part of the world, eastern. I don't know if that's east or west compared to here, but that's more than likely the clientele I'm going to have this afternoon. Damn, I should have brought me a drink. It's hot. It's 93 degrees where I am today. Yeah. So I want to get on a subject. Maybe I could ramble about it until I get home today. I've been watching this thing on Netflix. It's called The Program. Basically what it is it exposes like one of the biggest scams in America or perhaps even in the world. And it's about these kids that their parents have them kidnapped. You know, they call them troubled children. Their parents have them kidnapped and take them to these different locations around the United States. And I think the one that I've been watching is like Minnesota or something. But anyhow, it's right on the Canadian border. And they go into, you know, like what the program's about, what these kids supposedly, you know, they're troubled children. So they range in age, you know, mostly like early teens to probably 18, I guess, would be about the time they'd be able to sign themselves out. So they cover a pretty wide range of things, ages anyway. But anyhow, they're talking about, you know, how these kids, when they go in there in this program, and I can't remember the name of the place right off the top of my head, but they talk about these kids not being able to talk, you know, and everywhere they go they have to look straight ahead, and they're not able to make friends or share things or write each other letters or none of that stuff. And there's a lot of abuse that happens, or at least to some of them anyway, where these staff members really just kind of act like their parents away from their home, you know. And it's pretty sad to watch. Even though this is many years later, the group of the kids that were in there, you know, they're all grown up. I guess, you know, since they were there, they've shut the place down. And I guess they wanted to go back and confront a bunch of people that like work there and stuff. But they actually end up doing a documentary, and they find like records of these kids that were there, some of the stuff they went through, and they tell stories about their lives at home and how it really wasn't that bad, and they weren't really bad kids. They just, you know, they had some issues that unfortunately they couldn't get help with or refused to get, because, you know, when you're a teenager, you don't think about your behavior and, you know, what might get you in trouble and things like that. So their parents apparently, by referral, either referral or by just, you know, research, they find these places all over the world. I know they've got them in Mexico, and I think there was a few locations in America, and there was like, I think there was one in Czechoslovakia or somewhere like that. But they send these kids to these places involuntarily, and they make them stay regardless of, you know, whether they think they need to be there or not. And they kind of uncover a lot of the crooked shit that went on in some of these places. And it's called The Program. The name of the show is The Program. It's on Netflix. It's like a 3-part series. Well, it's only got 3 episodes, basically. But it gets you to thinking about, you know, when, like, back in the 80s, you know, this whole new generation of, I don't know whether to call it liberalism or whether to call it over-concerned parenting, or I know it has a lot to do with, like, the tough love generation. You know, these parents that had kids and, you know, they would lock them out of the house because they didn't make their curfew, or, you know, they would lie and go spend the night at a friend's house, and they call the police on them, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, my mom was one of those in that tough love generation. Of course, you know, she was listening to a lot of people that were in recovery, supposedly in recovery, alcoholic and drug addicts and things like that. So they convinced her that just because she was an addict, she was an alcoholic, but so was I. So my mom had me committed to a place called Highland. Well, first I went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There was a chemical dependency unit there for teenagers. And I was supposed to go through like this 30-day program. And, you know, it was just really all about alcoholism and drug addiction. It really wasn't anything that I was doing wrong. I was a fairly decent student in school. I played sports and things like that. But what led it off was my mom. I used to have chores, and my mom came in my room one time and told me that I couldn't go to a concert because I didn't wash the dishes by like 7:30 in the evening or something. And she wasn't going to allow me to go to this concert. So what I did is, she was going to an AA meeting, and I stood up and I kicked a hole in the wall. Now this was the night of the concert. So when I got back from the concert, I put a poster over the hole in the wall, you know, so she wouldn't know it was there. I don't know, I guess about a year or so went by, and my mom got pissed off at me one time because she took a bicycle away from me that I paid for, I worked all summer for. She took my bike away from me, and I told her, fuck you and the bike, and I went traipsing off and ended up spending some time at a place called The Relatives in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a runaway center for kids who, you know, can't get along with their parents or whatever. They go there just to kind of give the kid and the parents a break. Well, while I was there, my mother decided she was going to take all my posters off my wall, and she found this hole. Well, in the hole was a beer can, and, you know, I did a little bit of, you know, drinking when I was a kid. It was nothing like really serious. And I smoked a little dope every once in a while. I might take a, you know, like a speed pill every now and then, but they were over the counter then, so it was no big deal. So she went all off the deep end and decided, you know, that I was a drug addict and I was an alcoholic and I needed all this help. So like I said, the first treatment center she put me in was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It was run by the Baton Rouge Chemical Dependency Unit, but it was a subsidiary of the, I guess, the hospital system down there. And, you know, she stripped me out of school, took me away from my friends. She, you know, made me go to this place, and I didn't know anybody. And I couldn't leave because at that time I was only 15 years old, and there was no way for me to check myself out, and she left me there. So I was completely miserable, and I think that was kind of a clear sign to me that, my mom didn't love me, even though she said she did, with all that tough love and stuff they did in the 80s with the kids. I guess she decided that, she had had enough of me just being a teenager and couldn't really handle the responsibility. But not only that, but she was in recovery herself, so, there was a lot of fixing she needed to do on her own. And so I made some friends while I was there, and but I really, I really missed a lot of important things. I missed out on my junior high school prom. I missed out on, relationships that I had with people in junior high school. And after about, well, let's see, it was a 30-day program, and I was kind of a stubborn kid. They did some kind of a English test thing. They wanted to put me in a DePaul State Hospital in New Orleans, which was right down the road, and I didn't feel like I needed that, but they ended up, they had like a zero tolerance policy for, kids disrupting. So one day in one of the groups, the counselor really just kind of attacked me with words, and I got belligerent with her and started to get physical. So they decided that their program wasn't for me, so they sent me home. Now I was at home. My mom told me, well, actually I went back to the relatives because my mom told me that the only way that I was going to be able to come home is if I went for treatment again. But she was going to go with the recommended 1 year to a year and a half treatment that was recommended by, I guess, a physician or counselors at this Baton Rouge, Louisiana treatment center. But I wasn't going to do it, so for about, I don't know, 3 weeks or so, maybe a month, I went from the relatives. You can only stay at the relatives like a max of 2 weeks. And there was nothing that they could do to compromise with my mom to let me come home. So I left there, and I slept on couches and things like that. The problem was is that every time I got somewhere, my mom would find out where I was at somehow and would call the police. So the police would come, and I would leave before they got there because I would get word that they're on their way from the guy that she was dating at the time. So, like I said, that went on for about 3 weeks or a month or so. Now here I am, 15 years old, and I don't have a penny to my name, but I was sleeping, like in garages and friends' tree houses and things like that, partying. That's kind of what led me to partying was, because my friends did, and it was just something, it was just a part of the plan. You're a teenager, on a Friday, Saturday night, you get high and, you hang out with your buddies or whatever. And you don't go out causing problems or, raising a ruckus or anything, but it just happens, that you're with your friends and you want to be a part of what they're doing. So, like I said, I was sleeping in tree houses and things like that. Well, we got to the point where I got kind of ran out of places to go, really. My friends, their parents wouldn't let me come stay with them because, my mom had called them and told them, what was going on with me and all that stuff. And so they decided not to let me stay with them anymore. And so I finally got tired of it. I said, okay, Mom, that's fine. I've been sleeping out in the woods and stuff, and my legs were eat up with chigger bites, and I was starving to death, and I didn't know where my next shower was coming from. So I said, okay, Mom, I'll go to treatment. Now, of course, this is kind of a shortened up story because I'm driving, and I've only got about 30 minutes between work and home, but So I decided, okay, you know, I'll go to treatment, Mom. I'll do whatever you want me to do because I know you're not going to let me come back home and be happy the way I want to be. So she let me come home for a couple of days and made arrangements for me to go to a place called Highland Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina. And, you know, it was in the mountains and it was kind of nice, but, you know, I was still going to be away from my friends, but the only way for me to satisfy her was to go to this place. I didn't really feel like I had a choice. I think by this time I was probably 16 already. So here I am, 16 years old. I'm getting put in yet another treatment center. Then they gave me the same personality test and all that. And they decided at that point that I was going to be there for a year or more. Yay. So this was during I want to say it was my 9th grade year that all this was going on. So I decided to go ahead and, you know, do this. Well, when I got to this place, I mean, it looked like a campus, like a school, or like a boarding school or something. And, you know, it was fairly nice. I stayed in a hall called Brower 2. Brower was, you know, had rooms in it, had nurses stations and things like that. The very bottom level or basement was where the cafeteria was. The first floor was like administration buildings, basically where they kept records and things like that. Then there was Brower 2, which was the unit that I was on. I think there may have been 10 or 12 kids there when I got there. And they ranged in age, you know, anywhere from 15 to 17, I think. But some of them had been there quite a while when I got there. But when I got there, in order to keep me there, they did what they called a ward. And they worked on an ad-lib system. So it was like a level system. So in order for me to be able to go off of this ward, I had to, you know, go do the points on this ad-lib system and like earn my freedom. So for like the first week I was there, I was on this ward and they had people watching me real close, I guess to make sure I wasn't going to try and commit suicide or any of that stuff. And so then I finally got my first level, my ad-lib 1, which meant that I could go pretty much anywhere the group went, but I had to be escorted by some of the staff. So they had a smoking patio, and like, you know, if I wanted to go down the smoking patio and smoke, as long as there was a staff member that would take me, I could go smoke. And it was really nice to finally get outside after I'd been there a week and had not even smelled the fresh air. Finally got to go outside. Well, they had these really strict rules and stuff about, you know, making your bed and cleaning your room and not talking back to staff and, you know, going to your meetings and meeting with counselors. You had different times and you were supposed to set up times to go talk to your counselors and things like that. But they had what they called majors. Majors were anything that had to do with physicality. So like if you got physical with one of the staff or one of the nurses, they would give you what they called a major. And this place, you know, really revolved a lot around peer pressure. So whenever, you know, they kind of decided, I guess when they set this thing up, that when one person would commit what they call a major and would lose their level, then everybody else on the unit would lose their level as well. So here I'd been off, you know, just a couple of days off of ward, and somebody did some self-destructive behavior. They tried to, I don't know, they just scratched their wrist. I guess they were looking for attention. but somebody noticed they had marks on their arm, almost like they were trying to cut their wrist. So that was a major. So I got put back on ward because I lost the level that I had earned. It was no fault of my own. It was the fault of the person that decided that they were going to cut on themselves. Yay. So, man, dude, what are you doing here? So, when they did that, a lot of times what they would do is they would put them in what they called acute ward. And even though I'd lost my level and they weren't on our ward, they were on the acute ward, I wouldn't get my level back for like a week or however long they decided that the major was worth. Yay. So I finally got my level back and I was able to start, mingling with other people from other different units. There was 2 different buildings that had people that were in treatment there. Like I said, I was in Brower. I don't remember the name of the other unit, but there was a bunch of kids there. And a lot of those kids there, they had, things like autism. Some of them had Down syndrome and things like that. But they had one of the floors over there had kids that were addicted and things like that too. So I got to start meeting with some of these other kids, and that was pretty cool. So finally, after probably another month of being led around everywhere I went, maybe 2 months, I finally got what they call an Ad Lib 2. Now, Ad Lib 2, I could go down to the smoking patio by myself, which was kind of like a front porch, and I could go to meals by myself. So in order to go anywhere, though, on the campus by yourself, other than, not school, but the smoking patio and the cafeteria in the same building, you had to be a level 2. And I could go to doctor's appointments and things like that on my own. But they had Dr. Selman, this guy, he was a fucking joke. He had an office there, and we could go to his office by ourselves. That's pretty much it. Then they had a social worker there. I don't even remember her name. She was a real bitch anyway. But, so I finally got my level 2. And like I said, I stayed on it it was after a couple, 3 months that I got that. Then I finally got level 3 after probably another 6 months or so. And they wanted to analyze like everything we did, if we talked, out against other people, they wanted to know why. If we, didn't think the staff was being fair, we had to sit down with a counselor and tell them why. Of course, we had daily meetings with what they called the treatment team who would come in, and they had, psychologists and sociologists. Of course, Dr. Selman, the psychiatrist, would come too, and he would talk to us. But they did this every morning. They would go over like everything that you did. They would pick you apart every single day. The things that you did, and what were you thinking and stuff like that. But we also had activities, and a lot of the activities were about team building, and then they would do some individual things too. Like I remember one time having to take a bunch of those old time clock cards, the ones you used to stick in the time clock, to punch your time. And they would have like 1,000 of these things on the floor, and they would tell you to build a house with these cards. But you couldn't use glue or anything. You had to stack them and all that stuff. Well, what they would do is they would turn on music, and they would watch the progress, how it varied from song to song. Like if something was slow, of course people were slowed down, they were relaxed, but when there was like really fast-paced music on, you naturally, your body and your brain tells you to go faster. So that's what we did. We went faster. So they analyze us. Just to kind of give you an idea, of the kind of thing that they did. So anyway, like I said, after about another 6 months or so, I finally was able to go like on the campus by myself. So I could go to like the rec room. We had a rec room that had pool tables and pinball machines, or not pinball, but foosball machines. And I could go to school by myself. School was at the other end of the campus, so we were able to walk to school by ourselves. And we were able to go to the tennis courts or go down to the pool and go swimming, things like that. And it wasn't until you got Ad-Lib 4 that you were able to go like into town and things like that. Not only as a group, but you were able to go by yourself. But now this treatment center, even though it was a really nice place, it was kind of in a bad part of town. So I never went anywhere other than, just school and the rec room and stuff. Now, if you can imagine, a lot of these kids, they wanted to date the other kids in there. So, they were all the time sneaking around to have sex and things like that. They had, in order to get down to the cafeteria, you had to have there was an elevator from inside, like right outside the door of the unit. And this wood was like really thick, probably like a 4x4 post, but it had a bunch of wood built into it, like almost like shelves, but it really felt like more like cages. And you would have to ask the staff to unlock that door for you to be able to go anywhere. And so regardless of whether or not you had levels, you were still kind of like imprisoned there or something. It was really weird. But then, like after another probably 9 months to a year, I got my level 4. So you went level 4, Ad-Lib 4, and then you went 4B. So they kind of broke it down. It was almost like you would get like your level 1 after 2 months, and then your level 2 after 3 or 4 months, and then you got your level 4 or 3 after like 3 or 4 months, and then when you get your level 4, you're pretty much on the level that you're getting ready to go home, but they have what they call level 4B, and you had to have now once you got to level 4B, even if somebody had a major or they got caught having sex or something like that, or whatever, because having sex was a no-no in this place. But there was kids that got around that. Of course, there were kids that ran away, that would get away. They would leave from the lunchroom and say they were going for a walk, and they'd split and never come back, stuff like that. So there was quite a bit of that went on. But they usually got caught. Usually they would call the police. The police would come, get a description of the kids, and then they'd bring us back. Well, not me, of course, but I never ran away. But I guess I could have, but I never did. Because I kind of figured out how to play the game. It's more or less about playing the game in order to achieve your freedom, basically. So after I was like level 3, I kind of figured out, what was going on, how to play the game, what to say, what to do, how to act, and all that in order to get these levels so that I could, maybe go home. Now, I'm not going to say that my time there, was completely trouble-free, because it wasn't. I did some things that I shouldn't have done. And they did find out about a sexual relationship that I had with a girl there. Now, I won't mention her name because of anonymity reasons. Not really supposed to talk about people that were there. Even years later, I don't disclose names. Just because these people that were there, they were made to be there, and I don't want to. If it was an embarrassment in their life, I don't want to bring back all that bullshit. Okay, so anyway, so after about 6 months more, I finally got my Ad-Lib 4B, which means I was getting ready to go home. had to keep your level 4B for quite a while. And once you were 4B, you were like a mentor on the unit. So you know, like if there were chores that needed to be handed out, we did chores every day, but like if you had chores that needed to be done, if you were level 4B or 4, you were in charge of getting people to do what they were supposed to do. Which, you know, that's again that peer pressure thing. You know, they wanted kids to listen to kids and be influenced by others. And I think that was the whole idea behind that. So, you know, we became like the treatment kids police or something. Where they kind of pitted us against each other. It wasn't really fair. That's just the way they did things. But, you know, a lot of the things I learned there, more about psychology and sociology and human behavior and things like that, I don't think people really understand when I'm talking to them. You know, if they've got problems that, you know, they're dealing with, and I try and give them advice, I don't think they really understand a lot of times the experiences I have and the things that I've learned. They just think I'm talking out of my ass. But a lot of times it's really solid advice, you know, because these are things that coping skills and things like that I learned in this place. Then of course we had groups, you know, like I said, every day. So we learned a lot about, you know, drugs and alcohol. We learned about, you know, how it affects you as a person, what it does to your body, what it does to you mentally and emotionally, how it affects others around you, and stuff like that. So you got a pretty good wide range of counseling, education, I guess you could say. A lot of it had to do with education. And there were different levels of that as well that you had to complete before you could move on and go to something else. Excuse me. Working class. Anyway, so finally, after I had my level 4B, I don't know, probably for 3 or 4 months, I was finally able to go home. And before I left, they did a meeting with my mom and me and the social worker and a couple other people. And they tried to tell my mom, as I had my shit packed, I was ready to go. And they tried to tell my mom that they found THC in my system. Well, you know, I hadn't been out of sight of these people, and I guess the whole time I was there, I spent like 1 year and 8 months in this treatment center. So by the time I got out, I was almost 17. You know, being all that bullshit. I mean, it's like, you know, they made me go to Narcotics Anonymous and all that bullshit. You know, you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict. And they told me this for so long, and I had to say it for so long, you know, that I was and agreed with it. I mean, it was just part of the program. It was part of playing the game. You know, I had to convince them that, you know, I was a drug addict and alcoholic. That was just part of the program that I was in. And I really became something that I really wasn't. I became like this, you know, I wanted to save everybody in the world because, you know, I saw the things that were going on in this place. And I saw how it affected, you know, these kids' lives, and I saw how it affected their parents. You know, we had parents week. One week the parents came up and they talked a lot to us about, you know, experiences and group sessions and things like that. And, you know, as I was listening to some of the other stories of these kids, I was thinking to myself, my God, man, you know, like, these kids had a lot worse than I did. They did a lot worse shit than I did. You know, we're talking, these kids were like stealing cars and beating people up and, raising hell and, you know, staying out all hours of the night, not coming home for weeks. I never did anything like that. You know, like I said, the worst thing I ever did was drink a little beer and smoke a little pot every once in a while. And it just, how you doing? What's happening?
Torch?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
But delivery. Isn't that amazing? I get in the middle of something and somebody wants to interrupt me. So Amazon's here to drop something off. That was pretty. The doctor called, Dr. Selman, what a dickhead he was, calls my house, and I answer the phone, and left, and came back. We just enough by that time, you know, what you people were doing. You guys were sucking money out, and fuck you. So, but yeah. Anyway, there's a documentary on Netflix. It's called The Program. Now, of course, my situation. What's in this program described? Very simple, eerily. Some of the kids that were there at Highland Hospital. So I want to put this out there. If there's anybody that knows about anybody that was at, I want, first of all, I want Asheville, North Carolina. I want people to understand what some of us went through during this tough love understand video around in case there's somebody else that might see it that was at Highland Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina between the years of 1985 and 1986. The only way that I know really that was kind of the time I was there is because there was a lot of important shit that happened in my life, or should have been happening, that didn't happen. You know, like graduation from 9th grade, and, you know, getting into high school. I didn't really get into high school until my 11th grade year, I think, was when I went back to school. But anyway, in 1986, I remember when I was in treatment, I was watching the TV. We were watching the Space Shuttle Challenger launch, and it blew up. I know I was there in 1986, the last part of 1985, and most of the year in 1986 I was there. So if there's any, please people, please spread this video around. If there's anybody at all that was at Highland Hospital during that time period, I want to hear from you. I would call your names, but like I said, I want to keep you anonymous. If I do another video about you know, people I'm trying to find, I won't mention the fact that we were all in the hospital together. I'll just do a video. And hopefully, if anybody watches that video, they won't remember seeing this one or something like that. But anyway, okay, guys. Well, I'm at home now, and so I'm gonna get off of this thing. But for those of you that stopped in, I want to tell you I appreciate you stopping in and for a minute or two and kind of hearing my story. If you're just now coming in, which I see I have a viewer right now, if you want to go back to the beginning of this video, I think it's very important that you watch it. Please spread it around, like and share, because that's the only way I'm going to find these people that I was in treatment with. A lot of them were very important with me, and I built a pretty decent relationship with at least a few of them, even though more than a few is what I'm looking for. So If you were in Highland Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, between the years of 1985, later in the year, and 1986, the end of 1986, please get in touch with me. Leave me a message down below. There's a comment section that'll be down at the bottom after this video. If you would just leave your name there and email address or phone number or something, I'll be sure to get back to you. All right, guys, well, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed my story as much as I enjoy telling it to people sometimes. Have a good day. God bless you all. And it's Friday, so have a great weekend. All right. Talk at you later. Bye-bye.